In this video, we're going to tie a little micro hopper pattern called the Letort Hopper. It's a very small hopper pattern, meant to be a lot smaller than all those other large foam and bulky hopper patterns. This is good on picky fish, spring creeks, slow water sloughs, anything like that. So we're going to start off some UTC 140 thread. Then we're going to dub a body with some pale yellow dubbing. And the type of dubbing doesn't matter too much. I like to use a superfine dubbing. The body on this fly, you want it to be fairly slim. And superfine dubbing is a great dubbing to make these nice slim bodies. You can also use a hairline dubbing as well in the pale yellow. And all we're going to do is just build a tapered body with the superfine dubbing as we work our way forward. And we're going to take this dubbing just a little more than halfway up the shank of the hook, about 2/3 I would say, kind of in between a half and 2/3. We need to leave enough room at the front to tie in our deer hair head. So that's just about enough. I'm just going to kind of finish off the taper of the body here. I've gone forward about as much as I want to go forward. I'll just kind of polish off that taper and keep it going. Then we're going to take our thread here and just stop. Now we're ready for the wing. And for the wing we're going to use a little bit of mottled turkey. And I've coated the feather with a little bit of super glue on the bottom to kind of hold it together. You can also use head cement to do that. We want this wing to be back and hang over the back of the hook just a little bit. I pinch it into place. I do a nice tight wrap to secure it. We should have a nice little tent wing. And kind of roll it into place if it didn't quite get on there even. And we can trim out the excess. And I'll wrap down to the bare hook shank with a couple of wraps just to kind of clean it up. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tie in some deer hair, and we are going to stack the deer hair in a stacker just to even up those tips. And the little piece of deer hair is fairly small. I'd say about a quarter of a diameter of the pencil, so not too bulky. And we're going to tie in a little wing here that's going to be just shorter than the underwing. So this is kind of like an overwing, like the fluttering wing of the hopper. Then I'm going to trim those butt ends so that they're just a little long. We're going to tie this wing in with 2 loose wraps at first, and then I'll just pull down and let that deer hair flare, and then I'll wrap through that deer hair a couple times just to secure it. I made that wing a little long. We'll redo it here. You got to tie in these wings on these little hoppers a lot shorter than you think. So I'm just going to redo it here. If it's too long and hangs past the turkey, you've made it much too long. Kind of measure it out about where I want to tie it in. There we go. A little short overwing there. I'm just going to take that deer hair, I'm going to push it back, kind of coax it out of the way. I'm going to take my thread and just jump to in front of all of it. If you have a few stray fibers, you can trim them out of there. Now we're ready to spin the head on the fly. For that, we're going to use a little bit more deer hair than we used on the wing. And we're also going to trim the tips of the deer hair off. We just kind of want the middle section, the bulky portion of the deer hair. You do want to make sure you remove all the fuzzy underfurs of it too. You can use a comb to do that, or you can just quickly use your fingers. And once you have your deer hair ready, we're just going to lay it on top of the shank of the hook. I'm going to do 2 loose wraps with my thread. On that second 2.5 kind of third wrap, I'm going to pull and I'm going to let go. I'm just going to let that deer hair completely engulf the entire fly, and I'm going to lay down wraps throughout that deer hair. You want to make sure that you don't cover up the eye of the hook either. If you lay a wrap too close to it, you can just back it off. And you want to take all that deer hair and just kind of gently push it all back and out of the way so you can get your thread towards the front. And you can pull it all back with some nice tight wraps. You can secure the head. Now the whip finish, it's kind of tricky. I hold the bobbin in my left hand as well as stroke the deer hair fibers back, and then I can just get in there with a few turns. And then at the end you really want to make sure you pull your thread backwards, sucking all that thread back into the head. And you can trim your thread. Now the next thing to do is to shape the head, and the Letort Hopper, there's no fancy trimming, really it's just a blocky head. It's just kind of a square head. So what I like to do is just kind of stroke all the fibers up and forward, just kind of stands them all up. And you could take a razor blade or you can use your scissors. We're just going to cut 4 facets. Just kind of blocky. Then you can fine tune with your scissors. Got to be careful you don't cut any of those collar hairs that we tied in. You want those to stay. And if you like a nice big head, you can trim it larger, or if you like it a little small, you can trim it smaller. It's just kind of personal preference. And that's basically all there is to the Letort Hopper. I could probably spend all day trying to make the head perfect. I'm guilty of over trimming. Sometimes you just have to kind of stop and say, Good enough is good enough. But that is just the basic little Letort hopper. Great little hopper for spring creeks, picky fish. We use them a lot out here on places like the Dream Stream when the fish get kind of picky. But great little hopper. Pretty simple to tie. Doesn't have too many materials. Much simpler than like a Dave's hopper is. And you can find all the materials to tie the fly on our website, intheriffle.com.